The Mūlamadhyamakakārikā. I think I got that one right. It's also known as Root Verses of the Middle Way. And this is by Nagarjuna, who existed, we're going to say, 150 CE, current era. So this is another video of understanding nirvana. We are going to become enlightened again from a different perspective in the Buddhist sense of the word. Why do we want to become enlightened? Well, what we want to achieve is we want to achieve outcome independence. We want to hit that indifference threshold where no matter what we know, where no matter what happens to us, our sense of self isn't shaken because we understand what the self is. So because I'm not going to pronounce the name because I got lucky pronouncing it the first time, I'm just going to call it the Root Verses of the Middle Way. So, in the Root Verses of the Middle Way, it is said that all experience phenomena is empty. What does that mean? Let us look at a table. The table has to have a certain intention. It has to have us understanding what it is and what meaning we give it in order for it to exist as the thing that it exists. You can look at a table as a flat plank and then 4 sticks. If you walk into a store to buy a table, but the table is 4 times bigger than you, then you would think this is a bad gazebo, or you would think that this is maybe the frame of a house. But the purpose of the table, a place to put things on, a place where you can eat, where you can sit on, like that kind of thing, that has its nature because we give it meaning as to what it is. See, without us giving it meaning, it just kind of exists as an object. It exists as simply 4 sticks and a plank of wood. Okay? So those characteristics that it has are dependent on us to give it its reality, to give it its existence. Now, so the Buddhists, what they say is that if you don't add that level of meaning to it, if you don't interpret it in that certain way as to like its function, then there's no such thing as a table in and of itself. It's empty of what is known as inherent existence or self-nature. This, they also apply to the self. They apply this to the self because the self is really emptiness. So the idea is like this, is that yourself, like who you are as a self, doesn't really exist through time, because who you are as a kid, you can't imagine yourself as the same person as you are now. You're a totally different person back then as you are now. And so this is moving through that whole thing. At every instance, you are just kind of like a semblance of a self. And now I'm going to be careful with the language here, because they mean there's no true self, meaning that there's no you like as an existing entity, as a kind of like essence soul thing that goes from moment to moment. As a person, you're a person, but remember what we talked about in the persona thing, a person is a made-up thing. So a person is a role that you're playing. What it tries to do, like what the essence of this whole understanding is, that there is no personhood, it's to attain nirvana. It's to understand that all of your suffering comes from attachment to clinging to yourself. To clinging of yourself as an idea in the world that exists and is eternal. Because when you have a conception of yourself like this, you can't ever let go of yourself, because you're always trying to keep yourself as a being that's going through time and that will eventually exist forever, because it's the ego trying to hold on to its conception of reality. Look at it like this. To be insecure is to care. To be secure is not to care. Right? When you're insecure, you care about what she's doing all the time. When you're secure, you don't really care about what she's doing because, well, you're secure. You know that you can just go get another girl. You know that you can just, like, everything is fine. Okay? You let the things happen as they are and you trust in the things to work as they work. And this is kind of the idea of like liberation from attachment. So you let people go. You always let things go. You're not trying to hold on. Okay, right? Like you slept with the girl and you want to see her again. She doesn't want to see you again, but you're just cool with it. You keep things going. And you're not attaching yourself to the external world. You're not like looking for this perfect meaning of what is this gonna, like, what does this mean? Like, is this gonna lead to something? Is this gonna be like true and eternal? Because that's usually what people assume when they assume like they want something to be real. They want something to be forever. They want something to be eternal. And so this point of view, as I talked about in the previous one, is that nirvana, the search for nirvana implies the existence of samsara, of the world. So the quest for awakening implies that one is in a state of sleep. Okay? To just reiterate what I said in the last one, right? The real nirvana can't be desired because it cannot be conceived, because conception of it, to have this perfect state, to have this idea of like I'm going to get there at one point, is again just implying the fact that you're not there yet. So the idea is like be there. Understand that the self in all of its different instances, it's in all of its different iterations, is like the now. Okay? So people will ask you, like, how do you do a thing? Well, it's just like you just kind of do it. You just do it. You don't need to, like, say you want to write a book. You've never written a book before. How do you go write a book? Well, you just write the book. Okay? But because you haven't written one in the past doesn't mean that you can't write one in the future, because if you believe that, like, I've never done anything new, then you're holding on to the idea as this self that goes through time, as this self that is like permanent and fixed, and because it's permanent and fixed, if I couldn't do it before, I can't do it in the future. This is what these root verses of the middle way are trying to get you to understand, is that there's no selfhood in that sense, that it's like emptiness, and this emptiness is just a way of talking about the fact that language deceives us into thinking that we are these eternal things that last forever, that there is like a self. And now I'm just going to mention that there are times in this course where I will talk about the self as real, so I will mix up self and person because they're two different things. But you'll understand that when I'm talking about the self, it's just the colloquial way to talk about like personahood, about being a person, just like having those actions that allow you to exist in society, the certain behaviors, the person that you are, but not the like self that you really are, as we talked about in the first portion with the Jungian stuff.